Welcome back to the final episode of this particular season of Questionable Treatments, where thankfully this is the last time Ryan, will be joined by my wife,
Kim,
to talk about asylums and schools, if you can hear the air quotes.
Yeah, most of them didn't even do enough education to qualify as schools.
Right. But what are we talking about today? What's our topic?
Today we are talking about Sonoma State Home, Hospital, and Developmental Center.
Home hospital?
Home, hospital.
Oh, home, hospital.
Okay. A developmental center. Yep. It technically had 4 names, but the first name only lasted for a short while.
And where was this?
This was Eldridge, California. It was pretty close to San Francisco. So first we're going to start off with the history, like we usually do. So Sonoma State Home was opened by 2 mothers for their children that had developmental disabilities, so they would be able to get the care they were needing, but was not able to at the time. The home opened in 1884 by Francis H. Bentley and Julia M. Judah. The home opened with the name California Home for the Care and Training of Feeble-Minded Children. Before the opening of this home, the mothers were having trouble caring for their children, and the thought at the time was open air and training would help these children. So the mothers went out looking for a great place to open a home to care for the children like theirs. They found it in Vallejo, California. Vallejo. Okay.
Is there a J-O in there?
Yeah. Vallejo, which was a small town with rolling hills and open air. They built a small home for a small amount of children, less than 100, and the mothers ran the school for a single year. I don't know why, but the state took over the school in 1885 and started a plan to move.
Well, do you know how these mothers were doing it?
They just hired a couple teachers and stuff, like a couple teachers, and then they would take care of the children.
But they had to have been fairly well off to be able to afford to have a piece of land or facility and hire people. So like a grant for a nonprofit kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they took over in 1885 and started a plan to move it to a place with more land so the school could expand. Now we know what happens when the state takes over. Not great things.
Shittification.
Yeah. That place was found in Eldridge, California, where 1,600, I added an extra 0, 1,600 acres of land.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's a big difference between an extra 0.
But that's still a ton of land.
It's. I think it's the largest that we've ever covered.
Yeah, I don't remember you talking about one being larger.
So 1,600 acres of land was purchased and the school began construction. They did not move there yet because they had to wait for enough buildings to be constructed. The area of land sat on the cultural territory of indigenous people known as Federated Indians of Grafton Rancheria and Mishawal Wapo tribe. I totally butchered those names.
Probably.
Don't come after me. I can't speak English. We know this. The move to Eldridge officially happened in 1891. So they bought it in 1885 and they officially moved to the new plot of land in 1891. It took 6 years. In 1909, the name changed to Sonoma State Home, which is the county that they were in, which housed around 1,350 residents. With the views at the time of people deemed feeble-minded, the population continued to grow and more buildings needed to be built. This was a working farm that had dairy, cattle, plants, and others that needed to be worked by the patients. While this home was intended for children and the main population was children, they took in disabled adults as well. The children would also live there until they died, many growing into adulthood.
Yeah, so noting that you're saying many grow into adulthood, not all.
Not all.
That they live there and die and don't reach adulthood.
Yeah. There is no max capacity found because the amount of buildings kept changing. In 1953, the name changed again to Sonoma State Hospital, and around that time, there were 2 different grants, about 2 years apart, for $16 million, which was used to change the living dormitories to cottages. I mean, they didn't tear it down and build cottages. They just used a different part of the 1,600 acres to build cottages. Because of this, because the change to cottages, we know the max capacity because there was no more adding of buildings. That max was 3,200 patients. Now, from everything we've heard from the beginning to now, we know the actual population was way more than that. Do you want to guess? Do you want to guess the number?
7,000.
You're right.
Am I?
Yeah. The patient population would fluctuate between 5 to 7,000,
Wow.
with the staff being under 2,000.
That's still way better than Willowbrook.
Yeah.
A staff of under 2,000, so 1,800, 1,900 for 5,000 kids.
Yeah.
That's a way, way better.
All I got was under 2,000, so it could be,
Like what?
1,100
under
or something, yeah. The name changed again for the last time in 1985 to Sonoma Developmental Center. This was supposed to bring the meaning of change, where the children were meant to be treated better.
The meaning of change?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care if it doesn't make sense.
That's awkwardly worded, but yeah, I get it. They're trying to rebrand. They've got an image problem.
They do. Got a big image problem. There were a couple articles that said the treatment was better, but we know that's likely not what happened. The center was investigated for 2 years.
Better than what? Better than it was before the name change?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or I was confused if they're saying better than other facilities or better after the rebranding than
After
before.
the rebranding.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there was a couple articles that were like, oh, the kids are totally being treated better. Yeah, the name changed, invoked change with the treatment of children.
Right, everybody's got Nintendos and Walkmans. We're all happy.
Yeah. The center was investigated for 2 years in 1990, with the judgment being delivered from the state in 1994, where the school was found lacking and dangerous. Now, I'm going to sum up the ruling a lot.
Pretty sure those are my permanent record in high school.
But it said the school was dangerous to children from the treatment that happened to the children, lack of schooling, inadequate medical treatment of patients from the staff, and the way the patients were being fed. They were being fed completely laid back. Can't do that. Joke.
Yeah.
Now, the center had its own investigation team that would investigate its death, abuses, and rapes. So you would think that would help with the state looking at them, but we will get into that later. The state continued to watch the center and decided it was too dangerous for them to be open. So in 2015, there was a plan for the center to close permanently, starting with the patients being moved to group homes and no new admissions. The closing plan slowly happened over 3 years, with the center closing its doors for the last time in 2018. So it was open like 127 years.
Lasted a pretty long time.
Yeah. So now we're going to go into the life on the inside.
In the slammer.
While the mothers ran the school, the care for the residents was pretty on par for what you would want one of your family members to go through.
Is that the two mothers who started it?
Yes.
That ran it for 1 year.
So it
was good for 1 year.
It was great for 1 year. The shift in care happened when the state took over. Shocker. There was understaffing and underfunding before the home moved to its final location, so we know there was abuse of the patients, but there's no accounts of this happening.
No record keeping.
Yeah. When the accounts really started to happen was after the first name change. So when it turned to Sonoma State Home. The new location was a working farm, and with the little staffing and funding, the state home relied heavily on the free labor of residents, as we know, to keep the place up and running. The residents had to do everything from cooking, feeding other patients who couldn't themselves, working the farm, working with the livestock, maintenance, cleaning, punishing others, laundry, sewing, etc. Patients died from everything like ruptured organs, blunt force trauma, choking, pneumonia, illness common at the time, starvation, dehydration. Anything you could think of, they died from it.
Because of just insufficient care when something happened, or no precautions taken to prevent them from it? Like, is this like the other one that we talked about where all the windows were open all the time?
Yeah.
Was it? It's just open air?
Yeah, before they turned it to cottages, yeah.
I mean, at least it's California, but...
It's Upper California.
I don't know what Northern California is like.
Well, I'm assuming it's...
I don't know how
pretty much like Oregon.
Which is to say pretty...
Not lovely.
Not hospitable to sleeping with your windows open all the time?
Yeah.
Wet, maybe, leading to pneumonia?
Yeah. At the school, there were reports of physical, mental, emotional, and sexual abuse reported with nothing being done about it. As the population grew, the staffing stayed the same, so the abuse got worse as the staff was not able to deal with the amount of patients they were supposed to take care of. Around this time, the center moved away from working farm and treatment to working farm and custodial care, like we have seen at every other place we have covered. When the name changed for the last time, there was hope the care for the patients would change, but it didn't. So I shouldn't say it didn't. It did, but not for everyone. If you couldn't talk, if you couldn't move very well, or if you couldn't move it at all, you got worse abuse than before. And we're going to go into
And
that
this
a
was
little bit
during
later.
what time frame again?
This is when the name changed for the last time.
And that was the 80s? 85? Is that
85,
what you said?
yeah.
Okay, interesting. So Rivera's already done his thing. The country knows people are being abused.
Yep.
And they're willfully getting worse in some ways.
Yeah.
If you can't talk to reporters, they're getting worse.
Yes. Yep. At this center, there would be people working there with past convictions that would not allow them to get a job at a normal medical place that actually cared about their patients. The center also had a high population of patients that were not able to advocate for themselves. So if we do the math, then we see the care got better for the patients that were normal, or at least normal enough, and the care got worse or stayed the same for the patients that could not walk, talk, or move. So not only...
So we've seen this pattern before, though.
Oh, yeah.
We saw this at Willowbrook, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
The care is worse. No. Was it Willowbrook? Or has it just been so many of them?
All of them
that
are
the
like
more
this.
vulnerable you are, the more severe the abuse is.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a little bit more independent,
it was the first state school we covered that we talked about it. That's the first time we talked about rape.
Fairview.
Yep.
So Fairview,
they had murders and rapes there.
Yeah, is that the one with the night crawlers?
No,
that was Willowbrook.
That was not Willowbrook.
Oh, Walter
E. Fernald. Yep.
Yeah. So this seems to be a trend that we're seeing, that at most of these places, when you're the more vulnerable you are, the more likely you are to be abused, or the worse, like the more severe the abuse is. I'm guessing that's just sort of incidental, that if you're more independent, you can talk, you can move, you can do a little bit for yourself, then
you can defend yourself.
Well, I was thinking more you're just less likely to interact as much with the staff.
Yeah.
So it seems like just abuse is determined by the likelihood of interacting with a staff member that day.
Yeah.
And if you're kind of independent and you don't need them, they're not going to abuse you because they're not going to be focused on you.
Yeah. So to continue, this is what the state judgment was about when they brought it down in 1984. I know this is short, and I don't like saying the same thing over and over again, so I'm going to move on to the policing force, if you can hear the air quotes.
Policing force.
The center had. This was called Office of Protective Services. So this started back in the 1800s. That's when, like hospital security guards really started in the 1800s. That's when like hospital security guards started.
Yeah, weren't they called orderlies?
Yes, yeah.
I keep using that term, but I really don't know what it means, except I think it's the people who keep order.
Yeah, but where our history is going to start for this, because it's primarily in California that this was a thing, it's going to be in the 1950s. There was a movement on having a police presence for the hospitals and mental institutions across the state. So in 1974, the security guards at these hospitals were classified as police officers, and in 1980s these officers were required to go through the policing program. So they had to go through police academy.
Right.
So it was actual police officers that were graduated from actual police academies, and they wore actual police badges. You
keep saying actually in a way that is not confidence inspiring.
Yeah, you'll find out why.
Well, I mean, I know we've looked it up before. I've just read articles criticizing police training, saying that in a lot of states the police training is less. There's less training involved to be a cop and carry a gun than there is to be a hairdresser.
It's kind of like, technically I stab people for a living and I got less training than a hairdresser.
No.
I went to school for 2 years.
Right.
My program was a year long.
Right.
So to be a registered medical assistant, it's only a year. I got my associates with it. So that was 2 years. A hairdresser is a 2-year program, or at least a year and a half.
Let's see. Cosmetology program takes about 2 years.
Yeah.
In the United States, basic police academy training averages about 20 to 22 weeks.
But
So less than half a year. So a quarter of the time it would take you to become a hairdresser.
But to play the devil's advocate, because I do think police are generally good.
I mean, look, I'm not saying that they're not good. I'm saying a police academy, looking at some of these articles and what people are saying, that might be 27 weeks, might be 17 weeks, is not necessarily sufficient to weed out bad eggs.
No, but body cams help a lot.
No, they didn't have those in the 50s.
No, but
Giant
to
backpack with a
play
wire recorder on it and this big microphone, maybe.
to play the devil's advocate, I'm pretty sure they have to continue learning laws and stuff after.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of other requirements. I'm just
Yeah.
saying the initial hurdle to get in seems to not be as high as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And I mean, security guards are always.
Well, you also have a probationary period of like a year or two where you have to ride with another police
And
officer.
were you saying that they didn't take cops and put them there? They took the people who were there and made them cops.
First, they turned the security guards into actual police officers.
Yeah.
Which is not great.
Does that mean they need to then pass all the like physical stuff and
I don't
mental
know.
stuff?
They didn't have all of that on there.
Maybe they didn't have that back then.
Probably not.
But it's like, I think of going to hospitals or state-run facilities. I mean, I used to work for, I've actually worked for, I guess, 2 healthcare networks in the past. And one of them, you see the security guards going around and it's like, I like a 300-pound woman, like a 70-year-old man, like people who are unlikely to be able to do much. Like, she's not going to be able to chase anybody down. Yeah. Neither's he. Somebody could just come up and take his weapon away from him while he's sleeping.
Yeah.
It's just kind of.
So hospitals have panic buttons too?
Yeah. I mean, some of the hospitals that we've been to, it's like Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy or whatever, when they're old as shit in that cartoon. I never watched SpongeBob, but I've seen this like geriatric superhero.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you're right. You were right in the names. So, this sounds lovely. They're going to investigate these crimes. They're going to make sure nothing happens to them, right?
Well, I hope so.
Now, you did say the way that I said this kind of led you to believe that it wasn't great. And you would actually be right.
It's all a bunch of anus.
Yeah, you would actually be correct. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. Where do you think the problem is? I haven't given you much context, but if you could come up with a problem where this would not be that great of a system, where would that problem be?
The orderlies themselves?
Probably. But in the 80s, they had to go through the police academy, which means they had to have a background checked.
Okay, then I don't know. You're saying where would the problem be where like these police officers would not be useful?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say if it was the police officers and orderlies themselves who were the problem.
Kind of. Who do you think these officers reported to?
The director?
The hospital administration staff.
So they don't report to, oh, yeah, see, that's no good.
Yeah.
Having police doesn't matter if they report to the same people anyway.
Yeah. So everything that was reported was swept under the rug, and the families were told that there was not enough evidence for them to say anything happened, so there was no arrest made, and the case was closed. The investigations, if you could even call them that, were not for the patients or the family, but for the institution to be able to get away with what the staff was doing to the patients. Now, I don't know if the officers were just following order or if they had a sixth satisfaction, but they sure did make sure there was nothing done to the staff about what was reported about them.
Yeah.
Their investigations only involved getting 2 sides of the story, so the family or the patients and the staff, and
that's better than a lot of institutions.
That's true. And a light look into the staff logs, which were usually changed. We know this because it would be documented the change happened, at least when EMRs were a thing, so like early 2000s.
Yeah. EMRs being electronic medical records, right?
Yes, yep. So this is not great. They're clearly trying, but they did it all wrong. Now I'm going to go into a story of a patient named Jennifer, where this exact thing happened to her and the family. So this happened to, I would guess, thousands of people. But Jennifer is the most well known because there was a book written about it.
Were there any estimates that you found of the number of patients who cycled through the facility?
No, because
We
once you're in,
know
you're
the
in.
number. Well, but I mean, but they died.
Yeah. There is a, okay. Okay. So I didn't write this down but it's a crazy
Like in a
story.
period of 10 years where there's 5,000 people there, was that the same 5,000 people the whole time, or how much of it changed? Was it 20%,
There was
50%?
at least 50% of them dead in a year.
In
And
a
they would get
year?
more. They would get
In
more
a
patients
year.
in. Yeah.
So they were having like 2,500 deaths a year.
Yeah. This was not a great institution. Yeah.
2,500 deaths a year.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that's.
And you're going to find out where most of those deaths came from. But, I mean, it got better
I mean, that's like, yeah, that's
when the name changed.
almost 7 deaths a day.
I mean, they were beaten daily, but they had a cemetery on site, like most of them do. The stones weren't labeled or any, I mean, they were labeled with numbers, but that's it. And then there was too many bodies to bury. There were too many bodies to try to prepare and bury. So they started cremating everybody and just kept their remains.
Did they even report it to the families?
About 20% of the time. Yeah.
So a family member might come in to see somebody and they go,
and they're
oh,
just,
they died 3 years ago. Sorry.
yeah. That actually's been documented by a couple families.
Like, could I have their remains? And somebody just dumps their ashtray from their desk into a jar.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So they wanted everything in this hospital to be tight-lipped. They didn't want anybody to know about anything that was happening. But I know I marked this article on here as a source because it had some good information, but I think it was the 40s or 50s when they started cremating everybody instead of burying them. So there wasn't that many deaths. There was 50% a year deaths from the 40s to the 60s. And then it kind of slowed down a little bit. So it was a lot. This is a terrible, terrible place. Back to Jennifer. Jennifer had 2 mental illnesses, but there was only one that was confirmed. Bipolar.
I was even going to guess.
You're going to guess bipolar?
Let me guess it, yeah, that it's one that people live totally normal lives with.
I believe the other one would be severe autism.
Okay.
Based on how she was reported to act. She didn't want anybody to touch her. She couldn't speak very well. She couldn't really articulate her thoughts. When she got mad, she would hit herself or hit her head against things, That's just a lot of symptoms of autism.
Okay.
Jennifer was cared for by her mother for the early years of her life. You sound like you want to ask a question.
Are people with autism on TV? I feel like they always portray them as super, super smart and socially awkward.
That's like a less severe version of it.
So severe autism is just sort of crippling.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you will not be able to function in society,
Yeah.
even as like a highly valued.
Yeah.
Like, I think in Silicon Valley, there's a character called Gwart she almost never moves or says anything, but she's a brilliant programmer apparently.
Yeah.
And they have like a handler for her.
Yeah.
Because she's so good.
Yeah.
But she's presumably autistic and whatever.
Yeah. A lot of, autism makes your brain work differently.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a character in Elementary like that too. And that's,
Yeah.
I don't know, different point, but I feel sometimes like, representation of these illnesses in TV, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
To like raise awareness of it, and people who have it can see somebody that is like them and goes through what they go through. But also I feel like sometimes they massively misrepresent it, like with autism.
Yeah.
There's some show on, I've never watched it, but I've seen clips from it. The Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor, yeah.
It's like a kid who's a doctor, or he looks like a kid.
He just went through, he's a resident.
And he's like super, super autistic sounding.
Yeah.
And then in Elementary, there's a similar thing where Sherlock meets this girl who's a programmer at some company that they're investigating, and he's able to get her to help him. But she has all these things. She's like pathologically honest, cannot misstate anything, can't leave work unfinished.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably OCD.
Kind of like in The Accountant with Ben Affleck and John Bernthal. Oh, I got it. Oh, off the top of my head. Oh,
Feels good, doesn't
I'll
it?
probably have edited out the long pauses, but yes, it feels so good to not have to look up the name and be able to remember. But yeah, similar thing. Like he has stuff where it's like, oh, I have to do it this way. I have to like put things in certain orders or whatever. They don't show the like hitting yourself and these behaviors that would probably be very scary to people and they wouldn't know what to do about or how to handle.
The best movie that represents people with severe autism. I gotta find it though. Temple Grandin.
Grandin?
Grandin. So it's about this girl who's going through college who has severe autism, wants to feel like loved and stuff, but she can't stand people touching her. And she acts out in ways that most people with severe autism do, aggression, hit themselves and stuff.
Sure.
And in order to calm her down, she invents this compression, almost like the contraption cows go into.
That holds them for milking or for
That
feeding?
or anything with their horns or teeth like if there's any procedure done, they go into this contraption that kind of like squeezes them.
Okay. So it's like a lift
Yeah.
for cars, but for cows.
Yeah. So it like squeezes
Puts the
them.
cows into service position.
Yeah. But it also keeps them still and stuff. And she invented it, and then she starts working with cows, and it shows that her brain works different and everything.
With cows?
With cows,
She's
yeah.
working with
cattle.
cows?
Yeah.
Okay.
She works for a cattle farm. Finds out they're going to be murdered, and she does not handle it very well. But it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
Anyway,
Back to Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer, very autistic, not like on TV where she's counting cards and finding like fraud at major corporations.
Yeah. So Jennifer was cared for by her mother for the early years of her life, but she had severe issues that would cause Jennifer to act out in violence that made it impossible for the mother to take care of her alone. So she was moved into group homes when she was like 18. But her behavior would get worse and she would get kicked out of the group homes. She was in and out of a bunch of different group homes. This is when Jennifer's PCP, primary care physician, recommended her to be placed at an institution where they would be able to better treat her.
Okay. So placed into an institution, does that mean before this, the places she was going were not full-time?
Mm-hmm. I mean, they were group homes. She was supposed to live there and they had caretakers, but she was primarily by herself. It's like assisted living, basically.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Boy, the misguided knowledge that was. Jennifer was 27 when she was admitted to Sonoma Developmental Center in 2002.
Oh, God, this was recent. Okay.
Yeah. And things were okay to start. The mother would come to visit her and would bring her home for weekend visits, so she would be a good judge on if anything was happening. After a while, so like a year or two, of being in the center, the mother started to notice bruising on Jennifer. This was not abnormal for Jennifer, though, because she bruised easily
and hit herself.
And she would hit herself when she was overwhelmed or angry. The bruising started in spots that were not out of the ordinary for Jennifer to afflict herself, like her head or abdomen. But after a while, the bruising started to change to places that were not normal, like her back or breasts.
Yeah.
The mother asked Jennifer where she got those, and Jennifer responded with the staff was doing it with her broken way of speaking. The mother went to the center to place a formal complaint, but nothing was done about it. Then, November of 2006, Jennifer has worse bruising on her breast and bite marks all over her upper body. In the best way she could, Jennifer told her mother she was assaulted by the staff. So the mother went back to the center to place another formal complaint, and an investigation, if that's what we want to call it, was started. The OPS, Office of Protective Services, took the mother's statement and took the attendance statement, looked at the record logs of where the staff member was, and said there was no evidence to prosecute because nothing showing that a crime happened. Do you know what was left out of this investigation?
Security cameras?
Literally everything.
Oh, okay.
Literally.
I was going to say in the
everything.
2000s, security cameras should be there. There should be more sophisticated stuff than just, they didn't sign this sign-in sheet, so they weren't there and they couldn't have done it.
Yeah. So, at home, if you answered that, you're correct. All the evidence the police collected was a he said, she said statement. There was no rape kit done, no video collected or reviewed, no investigation into the logs that were noted to have been changed by the staff member they were investigating. No pictures taken of the bite marks or bruises. Nothing of any sort that would classify as an investigation was done for this poor person. The case was closed. Jennifer was traumatized by this, and at the next home visit, she would mutter the attacker's name. The center kept Jennifer for 2 months for observation after this incident, so the mom was not able to see her daughter. So after the case was closed in like December, they kept her for like 2 months. What the mother didn't realize, because she wasn't able to see her daughter, and the staff failed to notice, even though she had a pap smear done, there was evidence of a rape occurring. Take a wild guess.
She was pregnant?
She was pregnant. At the home visit after the 2-month observation, the mother noticed Jennifer's stomach was more swollen than usual, and she took her to the doctors. The doctor did an exam and notified the mother Jennifer was 26 weeks pregnant. She didn't know what was going on with her body, but she sure didn't like it. She would try to hit herself in the stomach. She would try to crawl around on her stomach. She would act out violently to other people because she didn't like that this was happening to
It's
her.
like there's something in me.
I didn't ask for this.
Right.
The mother was horrified. They were told nothing happened. How was this missed?
Right.
The mother could only think about Jennifer being brutally raped and calling for help from her mother, and she was not there to help her. It was estimated Jennifer was impregnated between January and February of 2007. So another rape occurred with nothing being done about it. There was a tip from a former employee to the OPS stating a janitor was the person who raped her and got her pregnant. He fled the state after DNA was collected, but there was no paternity test done for who the father was.
So they took like a cheek swab and he agreed to it, and then he effed off.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it was probably like a warranted thing.
Right. They came and said, we need to collect this, and then
Yeah.
they left, and when they left, he took off.
He took off, yeah. After the baby was born, the mother took Jennifer out of the center, and she now lives on her own with caregivers to assist. Thank God. There is another story. This is in a completely different center, but this just kind of shows you OPS. This one I find horrifying as well, but it's the stupidity.
Was anybody ever held
ridiculous.
accountable for anything in Jennifer's case?
No.
So even though this was recent,
Mm-hmm.
like in terms of these
Statute of limitations.
No. The statute of limitations for a lot of this stuff resets when new evidence comes to light. Like if an institution has been covering up the evidence of what happened for so long, when that evidence is made available, my understanding is that restarts the.
But she gave birth in 2007, and the cheek swabs were done in 2007. Hold on. So there was another story of a male patient that got his skull fractured and neck broken at another facility. OPS investigated and said there was no foul play because the staff at the center said he fell off his bed. First, he could literally not move anything.
He was paralyzed?
He was paralyzed. He had contractures so bad he couldn't move. Second, the bed was 2 feet off the ground. That is not high enough to break anything.
Right. Even if he did manage to wriggle off of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's high enough to get a concussion, but it's not high enough to break anything. The doctor, they did an autopsy. I don't know what they're called, those doctors. I don't remember.
Mortician?
Yeah, that guy. I was going to say that, but I thought I was wrong. Said the neck fracture is the same fracture you would see of someone who would have been hanged. Hanged?
Hanged. That's the correct past tense term. Yeah.
So, what the fuck happened?
Did they decide to hang a paralyzed guy?
I have no idea. He died about a week later because he was brain dead with no hope of him ever waking up. The article said he was a vegetable, but that's insensitive, so nothing was done. The case was closed. Literally nothing was done.
That's because the only police involved are the police on site who have every incentive to cover it up.
Yep. Because of these failed investigations in like 2015, I think. 2015, that sounds right. The state mandated OPS to get assistance from outside police forces to help investigate. So they can still investigate, and they're still there. It's still a thing. But they have to call the outside police
Real
force
police to come in.
Yeah. So let's hope they are more useful than they once were. Now, I know it's your most favorite time.
What kind of experiments happened in this place?
Yes, but first I'm going to go over a little something. So I wanted to go over real quick a separate experiment that happened at the state hospital. I say I keep going between different terms because
Sure.
it's the terms at the time of what it was. So it was a developmental center when I kept saying center. It's a state hospital now when I keep saying
They
hospital.
thought of it as a school back in the day.
Well, they thought of it as a home. They never called it a state school.
Oh, okay.
It was a home before, and that's why I would keep saying home.
Mm.
So
I
this
was
is
thinking school because they said training was important.
yeah, but school was never part of the name.
Okay.
So when I'm saying hospital, home, center, that kind of gives you a reference of what time frame. So right now, we're when it was a hospital. There was a polio vaccine experiment that happened in October of 1952. Patients at the hospital were given the vaccine in chocolate milk. I swear I'm never drinking chocolate milk ever again.
Dangerous.
Yeah, they put poop in it in Willowbrook.
Right.
Now they're putting polio vaccines in it. Never drinking it ever again. Then the patients would be exposed to the live virus to see if the vaccine worked. They would be later tested to see if they have antibodies for polio through a blood test. The exposure and infection rate of polio was high at the hospital, so this would be a great way for them to test the vaccine. So they never gave them the live virus.
Okay, when you said they would be exposed to it, it's just
From
because
living
it's
there.
around. It's
Yeah.
endemic there.
Yeah. So they're kind of monitoring them to see if they get the symptoms of polio and then doing the blood test to see if they have the antibodies. Like all
I
experiments.
mean, that's not that bad. Like, polio's a problem. We're going to vaccinate some of these people and see if it works.
Which is why I'm going over a brief thing about this.
Okay.
Like all tests, there was no knowledge about the test going on. Now let's go into the part where I find this experiment to be the most fucked up I've ever read.
So what is the experiment? What are we talking about?
We are talking about the pneumocephalography experiments.
Pneumocephalography. So that would involve lungs and brain? Am I right?
No, kind of. So let's break down this big ass word.
Yeah, pneumo meaning lungs.
Well, I also want to have the listeners learn a little bit of how terminology works.
And cephaly is
Cephalo.
cephalo. Is that Greek for head?
It's all Latin.
Is it Latin?
Yeah,
I couldn't remember.
it's all Latin. So
Some of those. Well, okay.
pneumo is a prefix. It's meaning air, gas, lung, breathing.
Yeah.
Cephalo is also a prefix, but it can also be in the middle of a word, head or brain.
Right.
Graphy is a suffix, which means image or taking diagnostic series of images. So if we put this together, we get taking a series of images of the brain with air around it to get a better picture.
Okay. How do you get air around it?
So I'm going to give just a little bit of knowledge onto these people who probably don't know how to speak medical terms. If you do, yay. If not,
Medical
here's
term vocab from the
medical assistant.
lady who says she can't speak English.
I can't speak English, but I can speak medical terms. You take the end of the medical term, and that makes the beginning of the sentence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the middle is the middle. The first part of the word is the end of the sentence, which is why it kind of sounds like I said the sentence backwards from the actual word.
So lung brain pictures or air brain pictures is pictures of brain with air.
Yes. Yep. That's how it works.
So how did they put air in the brain? Tire pump in your ear?
I am so glad you asked. The doctors doing the procedure would drain spinal fluid, so about 5 to 10 mils at a time, and replace it with air. One of 3 options were available: room air, oxygen, or helium. They did this until they got the amount of 20 to 50 mils of spinal fluid drained.
Pray tell. Why? Why did they want the spinal fluid?
The medical term for spinal fluid is cerebrospinal fluid because it's around the brain and the spinal cord. The function of the fluid is cushioning the brain, providing nutrients to the brain and spinal cord, removing waste, balancing the weight of the brain by making it float, keeping the pressure and temperature constant, and providing the areas with immune cells. Pretty important shit.
Yeah.
So now I saw you kind of
come to realization that they're just draining the fluid out of your head.
Yeah.
Okay, so they drain the fluid out and they allow air to go in, or they just pump air in, ambient air potentially.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think a noble gas would be if you had to do it?
It'd be better to use pure oxygen or helium, but apparently they didn't believe in sterilization at this time.
So like, when was this?
50s?
50s. So there's a doctor just smoking there, and
Yeah.
they're pumping like secondhand smoke air into somebody's brain, probably.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the area that they would drain the spinal fluid is almost the same place as an epidural. So it's low on your back. So the air was pumped in pretty low on the spine. And the column around the spinal cord is a column, but it connects to the brain. There's no like wall or anything. So they would have the patients be strapped with heavy leather straps onto a chair thingy called the fluoroscopic chair/table. It could be flattened into a table if need be, but it can also rotate. The patient would be sitting upright while the spinal fluid is being removed and air injected. Once all the air is in, the patient would have to sit upright for about 30 minutes so the air could go up to the brain. Then the patient would be taken on the worst tilt-a-whirl ride ever. They would be spun every which way possible to get the air bubble to break up and go into all the nooks and crannies around the brain. So now, we just talked about the spinal fluid cushioning the brain. It keeps it from smacking against the skull. Could you imagine the fucking headache you would have after this?
No, I couldn't. I've never had my cerebrospinal fluid drained and air pumped into my head and then put through like a G-force simulator.
Yeah. That's actually what I thought of when I
I'm thinking of the movie
read.
Spies Like Us, where they come out and their faces are still messed up like they were when they were in there.
Yeah.
So were they? No, they wouldn't have been. They were strapped down with heavy leather straps, so they were not sedated.
Correct.
Was there any kind of pain relief?
No.
I don't think there is. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought, because I'm pretty sure when they do anything to your brain and spine, you have to be more or less awake for it.
No, not your spine. With your brain now, well, with your brain then too. You were at least got local anesthetic and you could do it with your spine too, but they knock you out and then they would wake you up when they get to the surgery part of the brain to make sure they're not hitting important shit. But no pain relief at all. Okay, so for my epidural, I got pain, I got numbing to the area.
Right.
They cut it and then they insert the needle.
Right.
So just think, did you see the needle?
No, I didn't look. They told me this is when people pass out.
It's like a 16 gauge needle that's like 2 feet long
Great.
because it has to be far back from your body. I could be making it longer than it really is, but it's huge. It's a big ass needle. And it's called a spinal tap because they tap it into your spine.
Yeah, I understand.
It's the most painful shit that you could ever have.
Yeah.
And it could paralyze you.
Yeah.
Now just
There's
think
a
of
whole
that.
Batman Beyond villain based around this.
Really?
Yes.
But yeah, so just think of that with no pain relief, with not being sedated or anything. Kind of fucked up.
Yeah, very fucked up. I mean, everything's fucked up. So what fucked up thing happened next?
The patient would be turned upside down, so their head would be closest to the floor.
Well, at least the fluid would come back into there. No? Does gravity not draw the fluid back?
You would think, but there would be kind of like a bubble protecting the
So
fluid
it's not
from
like
going
turning a
down.
bottle upside down when, oh, look, now the top's full.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the opening is kind of small.
So turned upside down.
A series of x-rays would be taken of the brain at all possible angles. The doctors are wanting to get a better picture of the brain of disabled people. They wanted to see if this method would work.
Method of what? Looking for abnormalities?
Yeah.
And, I mean, did anything useful come out of this?
No.
So they were just wrong.
No.
They didn't gain any useful information from doing these x-rays.
Well, the reason they didn't gain any useful information is because the CT came out. The experiment ended in the 60s, somewhere in the 60s. There wasn't a definitive date.
To do better the thing they were trying to do.
Yeah, and the CT, which is the main use of brain imaging, was invented in 67.
Yeah. So what happens to one when they have air surrounding their brain instead of fluid?
It'll eventually be absorbed by the thin layer of tissue covering the inside of the skull, and new fluid would be
generated. Or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, made. So the symptoms of this are severe headaches, neck pain and stiffness, ringing in the ears, hearing loss, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, vision changes, changes in cognitive function, and a lot of other pains and aches that you could get from it.
Yeah.
Just makes you feel like shit.
When you shake your head and say no, you hear rattling.
Yeah.
That's not good. Okay, so you said they're looking for abnormalities. What kind of patients were they using for this?
Children at the hospital who had cerebral palsy.
Okay, so again, super vulnerable,
A lot of them couldn't move anyway.
like the most pitiful,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the ones that when you see them on the Shriners commercial, you just want to hug them.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, that's very sad. Did they have like a control group? Did they do any kind of imaging on normal brains? Like, you know what I mean? Typical brains.
No, because that's not necessarily what they're looking for.
I guess they know what a typical brain looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, because they did a lot of autopsies on brains before this. What they're looking for is if they could get a better image and not have to dissect brains.
Okay. So, surely they got informed consent from these poor children with cerebral palsy.
Well, it wouldn't be the children it wouldn't be the children that would give consent, it would be the family.
Well, either way.
But no, the
So
family
just-
didn't give consent. They didn't even know it was happening. Nobody knew.
So, would the children eventually tell their families, hey, they stuck me, drained some stuff out of my back, it was super painful, and then they put me in a human centrifuge?
No, because most of them died.
They died from this procedure?
Either from the procedure or from the treatment at the hospital.
Did any survive? Was there a good outcome?
No. So the patients that did survive, at least the procedure, they would continue living as normal as possible. And when they died at the hospital, the brain would be dissected and determine if the x-ray was useful in mapping the brain.
So, compare the scan with the real thing.
Yeah,
And was it?
kind of.
I mean, was it like moderately effective, but the CT was better and obviously didn't require you to perform a lethal procedure?
Well, there's a reason why CT is better because x-rays look at bone.
Yeah, it's a different kind of imaging.
Yeah. The main problem you have with x-rays is the skull.
Yeah.
It's bone. So you can kind of see the brain, but it's not a clear image.
Okay.
So no, it wasn't really all that useful.
So you said these were happening up to 67 when the CT came out.
Probably.
When
They
did
didn't
they
give a date.
start?
The 50s. Somewhere in
just
the
the
50s,
50s.
and they ended somewhere in the 60s.
Okay. And who was conducting them?
Sonoma State Home Medical Association.
So a group independent of the facility but associated?
I think it was actually part of the facility. They didn't change the home to hospital, but
Yeah.
I think it was
Like a department within it?
yeah.
Okay.
So the medical director at the time wanted to feel included because, he was butthurt with furthering the betterment of the medical community. So he decided to do these experiments. A butthurt man decided to torture children.
Yeah.
The state funded this experiment, but there was no documentation that they knew what the experiment was going to be exactly.
I buy that. So there was no accountability for the people who raped and impregnated that poor girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assume it would be wishful thinking to think that somebody was held accountable for any of this.
Yeah, you're correct. No one was held accountable for the experiments for many factors, mainly three: classified documentation, protection of the institutions, and secrecy around the experiments.
Do we have any idea how many children went through this?
Thousands.
That's
There was
horrible.
no exact number like I've had in other experiments because it's so hard to get any sort of information on it, but it was somewhere in the thousands.
When did it come to be known more generally that it was happening?
When it closed, a lot of the documentation was reviewed, and that's when,
So like 2018,
yeah,
they found out that stuff was happening in the 40s and 50s?
yeah,
That's fucked up.
that is fucked up.
This is why people make, movies like House on Haunted Hill,
Mm-hmm.
because that shit was real.
Mm-hmm.
They were really doing these horrific experiments.
Yeah. So that, my friends, is the history and experiments at Sonoma State Hospital.
Well, I feel like we didn't talk a whole lot about the hospital. There's a lot of staff compared to the others, maybe not enough. But what was daily life like? Did the residents get to do anything?
No. It's not like at Walter E. Fernald School
Yeah.
where they would get to go out and do stuff. There was nothing for them to do.
I mean, was it like Willowbrook where they just sit in a dark room and stare at the walls?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is going over the exact same thing over and over again. But if I was going to compare this to another school or hospital, it would be a mixture between Willowbrook and Byberry.
Okay, so some facilities and some things to do, but it's very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
that's kind of how Byberry was. There
Yeah.
were facilities and things there for entertainment and education and
Well,
some kind of like intellectual stimulation, but
I'm saying Byberry because of the abuse that happened,
yeah.
and I'm saying Willowbrook because they had nothing to do other than take care of other patients and maintenance and everything.
But they were allowed to interact with each other, right?
They were allowed
Weren't
to
they not
interact, yeah.
at, was that Fairview where they weren't allowed to?
No, that was Walter E. Fernald.
Okay.
They were not allowed to interact with anybody. It's also where they had the night crawlers.
Right. Okay. Awful.
It's fucked up and it's taking a toll on my psyche, and I'm so excited to
I
get a nice
don't
break.
believe you at all. I really don't. This is what you do for grins, like just for fun.
No,
I come into the bedroom and you've fallen asleep with your iPad sitting there on the bed playing stuff about.
murder,
Right.
not children.
I come in, I'm tired, I've been editing the podcast or whatever. I get into bed, I can hear your thing playing real low. The head was found in this barrel. The arms were found in a bag floating 2 miles away. Like just horrific shit. And you're just sleeping like a baby.
Yeah, but this is the asylums were not as bad as state schools. State schools were really hard for me to research because I have a child.
Yeah. It's hard, it's impossible for me to imagine leaving a child there when you see that there is for sure evidence, physical evidence on them that they are being abused there.
Yeah.
Like, they would just be like, that'd be it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're leaving right now.
Yeah. Like, we're done. But they made it so hard to get any child out of these places.
No, I just mean we're walking out right now.
Yeah. But then the police would come and find you and make you take your child back.
Nah.
Yeah.
I know they would, but if it was me, I think I hope I would just make it hard enough for them that somebody would be like, why are they resisting sending their kid back there so badly? Maybe we should talk to them about this.
Well, we found out at Byberry they didn't really give a shit. At least before the 2000s.
Yeah.
I didn't care. But yeah. True crime, murder, and body cams are my guilty pleasure.
So they had 2,000 staff members, but they were all just horrible. Were there any accounts of under 2,000, but were there any accounts of any of them that were good?
I couldn't find any.
You couldn't find anybody talking about their experiences there, that there was like one attendant who was good to them or whatever?
Nope. There was nothing. I mean, other than the two mothers, there was nothing. When you look up an asylum or a state school, the primary resources you're going to get is talking about all of the horrible shit that happened.
Yeah.
But if you go through enough pages on Google, you'll find at least one that talks about a positive experience that they had. I could not find one. I mean, this one was the experiments were so hard to research because it's still so closed off.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the state doesn't want to admit that they did some fucked up shit. And then I found an article saying they banned sterilization in like the 70s. Sterilization was a big thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a little bit too, that you were saying this is in California. California is known for being super progressive and worrying about everybody's rights, not offending anybody, not building anything in a place where it would have a negative impact on anybody else's property or whatever. But they were the last ones still having forced sterilizations. They had this, a state-funded, reasonably well-staffed corpse factory.
Yeah.
And the biggest industry, or, well, second biggest industry now, I would assume, Hollywood. I don't know how many tech firms have moved out, but Hollywood, we found out with the Weinstein stuff that a lot of that's like super corrupt. If you want to be in Hollywood, you have to sleep with this old guy or whatever. I mean,
suck somebody's dick for $5.
It's a thing that's in a lot of movies and shows that this is what you do. You want to be a star, don't you?
Yeah.
But that's California.
Yeah.
They talk about having these good intentions and they impose a lot of regulations, and then they still house some of the most corrupt organizations there are. I mean, I could just go on and on about it. Like, most of the companies causing a lot of societal problems are there. But there are also companies that have gone from doing something useful to inadvertently creating a societal problem. Then in a lot of cases, it seems like realizing that they've created a societal problem and deciding to ignore it.
Yeah. So there was an article that I read about sterilization was about the main thing that came up in this. You always have to assume with like a state school or an asylum, the sterilization happened. I mean, it happened at every single one of them. So I didn't want to talk about it. I already covered it. I covered it on a lot of them. But the article, which was talking about sterilization mainly, said that the sterilization ended in California in like 74. I know that's wrong because when I was investigating sterilization, or researching really, that there was a public trial for a woman in 2002 that was forcibly sterilized in a prison without consent or knowledge. And that's when they got rid of the law about it. And it pissed me off. If you're going to write an article, at least make sure your facts are right. You always got to have 3 that say the
Sources.
same thing.
Yep.
Unless it's like a medical journal, then you only need the one.
As long
Unless
as
it's
it's
about
peer
vaccines.
reviewed.
Yeah, unless it's about vaccines. Then you make sure you have 3. But that's it. That's it for this. It's probably going to be more of a shorter one because I just can't continue talking about children being abused.
Yeah.
I enjoy this and I enjoy true crime, but this is so fucked up. I dread it. This one really took a toll on me just with how horrible it was. Cause just think of how painful it is to like the spinal fluid keeps your brain floating and then they drain it out. Now your brainstem is crushed because your brain sinks. Like that just has to be so painful. But this one probably almost made me want to quit. But
We're going to come back with some
more exciting shit.
cheerful murders.
I don't know. It really depends on if the
No,
sanatoriums
I'm
are
making
as
fun
bad.
of you
Oh,
for,
liking murder so much.
yeah, I don't know why this is okay for women to be obsessed with murder.
'Cause we just
Y'all
are.
should be surrounded by doctors all the time. They should just be studying you.
But to end us off, I'm going to let you guys know that we're going to take a break in this season and then we'll come back with season 2. I still have no idea what we're going to do. I definitely want to get into murder and fucked up shit, hopefully not involving children.
But what we can tell you is it'll be questionable.
It will be questionable.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.